Bum, bum, bum. Got some news and some small news and notes before we get to the head the headline kind of topic of the evening, I would say. Oh, welcome back, Devils fans. It is your host Anthony Corona here on Speaking of the Devils, where we are talking New Jersey Devils hockey all year long. Please hit that subscribe button, smash the like, share with a friend. Thank you very much. And as always, appreciate all of you. And the dog, we are officially in the dog days of summer, my friends. We are in August 3rd. August 3rd. As we creep towards preseason, the regular season, training camp, all that fun stuff. But we are officially in the dog days of summer. I have some interesting things in the works for you guys for this time of year. But in the meantime, we will engage in some of the what the heck? Oh, my screen's all messed up. Bear with me, folks. I don't know why this thing is huge. What the hell? All right, there we go. That's better. Before we get to the main event here, we got some like I said, smaller I'm gonna get to the chat. I appreciate all you guys. I'm eventually gonna get there. Let me just babble a little bit. But the first thing of note, this comes out last week. MSG partners with DAZN as new streaming home. MSG Network's Home of the Devils announced today that they've entered a partnership with DAZN for an exclusive direct-to-consumer streaming service for the 26-27 NHL season. MSG Networks and Yes Network have entered into a landmark partnership that will make DAZN the world's leading sports entertainment platform, the exclusive direct-to-consumer streaming home of MSG Networks and Yes Network during the 26-27 NBA and NHL seasons. Subscribers within the network's respective regional coverage territories will have access to live Yankees, Knicks, Nets, Rangers, Devils, Islanders, and Sabres games, as well as 24/7 feeds of the MSG, MSG Sportsnet, and Yes Networks, and a wealth of on-demand content, including highlights, behind-the-scenes programming, an Emmy award-winning original series. If you subscribe to MSG Network or Yes as part of your pay TV subscription, you will continue to get MSG and Yes content as applicable via the DAZN platform at no additional cost. And then they're talking about how that awful Gotham app is going away. I will say, long story short, I was part of the cut the cord revolution. Cut the cord, get rid of cable, and you get the streaming. And at first, it sounded like a good idea, and I was like, "Yeah, cut the cord." But as time went on, I mean, I'm sure many of you are in the same boat. You need 7,000 friggin' subscriptions. Yeah, HBO, this, Hulu, Disney, Paramount. I can't even keep track. I have somewhere on my computer a spreadsheet of all these stupid logins, but it is difficult to watch games. And many of you are not in the market and have relied on the Gotham app, which I've had to rely on when I've been on the road a little bit or out somewhere and I wanted to watch the Devils, and it was kind of problematic. Hopefully this whole kind of process of watching Devils games through the streaming online will be much better with DAZN. I know a lot of you are pumped for that, but after the cut the cord revolution, I decided because of all these pay for apps and all of this, I needed to go back to the cord. So I am officially back on Verizon Fios, as I told many of you. And another big reason for it is a lot of times some of you folks get chatty in this chat during the game, and I like to come in here and talk a little bit as well during the game before the post game live starts, and the apps and the streaming are always like significantly far behind. And when I was living in this cut the cord world, a lot of times I'd be in the chat and you guys would be like, "Oh my god, goal," either a goal for or against, but people with the the Fios cable feed were always ahead and kind of spoiling it, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I absolutely cannot do this anymore. I need to be in real time, and real time is Verizon. So that's kind of my spiel on the cable. But hopefully that gets better for all of you guys that are out of market and rely on these various streaming platforms to watch the New Jersey Devils. Then we have another signing. Devils re-signed villain. This is the same day last week. The New Jersey Devils have re-signed defenseman Tobias Villain to a 1-year, 2-way contract. The contract details for 26-27 are as follows: $850,000 at the NHL level and $150,000 at the American Hockey League level, with $175,000 guaranteed. The announcement was made by GM Sonny Maeda and Devils assistant general manager / Utica Comets general manager Braden Birch. Villain's 23, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to inundate you with all this, but played in 61 games for the Utica Comets last year and 2 with the Devils. Another young defenseman who has shown some promise. And for those that haven't been paying much attention, with the moves Sonny Maeda has made in his brief tenure as New Jersey Devils general manager, there is a plethora, I would say, a plethora of NHL defensemen or defensemen that I would say are damn close to being NHL defensemen. Sonny has talked on several occasions about the importance of organizational depth and how he prioritized it. And once again, you see another move, backing up what he's been preaching. And the defensive depth right now, I think it could be the deepest it has been in really forever. I do think there's probably at least, when you look at all the guys under contract, there's probably at least 10 defensemen that could be NHL contributors. Now, I'm not going to say that, there's 10 that are bona fide every single game NHL defensemen, but I think there's at least 10, maybe even more, that, if there's injuries or something, that could come in a pinch and play a few games and not really hurt the team. And Villain definitely fits that mold, in my opinion. But the defensive depth and the organizational depth overall continues to improve under Sonny Maeda. We'll see what happens with Utica. Obviously, the Comets have been in a rough spot for a couple years, and Sonny Maeda has talked about the importance of kind of getting Utica back to where it needs to be as the main developmental team for the New Jersey Devils. And so I do expect the Comets to look much better this season than they have in the past. And when you look at some of the guys that will not crack the Devils roster for opening night, those guys are going to be in Utica. So Utica is definitely going to be an exciting team to keep an eye on, with so many guys, both forwards and defensemen, that are kind of on the verge of becoming regular NHLers. But yeah, Villain, very interesting to see, and on the topic of defensemen, when you think like 3 and 4 years down the line from now, there's so many question marks on the defense, and there's a lot of these young guys, the possibilities are endless. Very exciting time, I would say. When we get to the next one here, Devils sign forward White last week as well. The New Jersey Devils announced that the team has signed free agent forward Colin White to a 1-year, 2-way contract worth $900,000 at the NHL level and $400,000 at the AHL level. Announcement was made by Sonny Maeda and Braden Birch. White is 29. He spent the last 2 seasons with San Jose and recorded 48 points in 46 regular season games with the organization's AHL affiliate, the San Jose Barracuda. 6 foot, 195-pound forward, 48 points, ranked second on the team last season, while his goal, assists, and points totals all marked career highs for a single season in the AHL. Again, another depth move. Could make some noise in the preseason, could make some noise in camp, may sniff some time with injuries, but once again, another move that will strengthen Utica and continue to build on the organizational depth that the New Jersey Devils have desperately needed for quite some time now. White, another guy, I do expect him to start in Utica, but I would not be surprised over the course of the season with some injuries and things that you may see him for a game or two. Hopefully the New Jersey Devils in 26-27 stay mostly healthy, because as we all know, hockey is a very physical sport. It is a grind. It is now an 84-game season, and so injuries are part of it. It inevitably is going to happen, but hopefully none of the big guns go down for a while. And if this team stays healthy, I do have a pretty good feeling about the season. And let me just get into a couple chats here before I get into the main event here. Appreciate you all for coming out. Shoulder Check. Oh, how can I forget Shoulder Check? Shoulder Check, great charity event I attended last week. The Shoulder Check Showcase with Brett Pesce participated, along with a bunch of Rangers and some other NHL guys, Trevor Zegras and Chris Kreider, Cutter Gauthier, a bunch of guys. But if you haven't seen any of my videos about that, check that out on the channel now. I have a little video about the foundation that I did before the game. I did an interview with Brett Pesce. If you haven't seen that, check that on the channel. And then obviously after the game, I did a vlog for Shoulder Check. So check that out, but definitely look into them. Great charity, great cause. I look forward to going next year. Shout out to everybody at Shoulder Check. I had a blast there covering the event, again, for a great cause. And look forward to the 2027 Shoulder Check Showcase So definitely go check that out. And obviously, if you haven't seen the Sonny Meta interview that I did a couple weeks ago, that's on the channel as well. I know a lot of you kind of are busy in the summer running around doing whatever, and aren't fully locked in to your New Jersey Devils news and notes. But go ahead on over to the channel when you get some time. There's some interesting stuff on there. Let me do a little chat here before I get into we got Quinn Hughes to the Devils eventually. LSD Jr. Quinn is going to get signed by the Wild, just a matter of time. Khaki, what's going on? Quinn better sign here in Mini. I'm already wearing my Hughes Wild jersey. R. Roma says Quinn is going to sign for 3 years so he and Jack can play together for a new team, leaving Luke behind instead of Quinn just coming to New Jersey next year. Yeah, so I'm going to get to all this in a second, but let me see. Ethan's talking about the tickets. What's up, Ethan? I don't know why I'm surprised the home opener resells only 80. I don't know why I thought it would be more expensive because we were playing Philly. Yeah, I've talked about it a million times. If you don't go to a ton of games per year, you're looking for 1 or 2 to go to. Always on my short list of games I recommend to people is the home opener. Usually electric, great atmosphere, start of a new season, new hopes for everyone in attendance. The Devils do a great job with the red carpet arrivals they've been doing outside on Championship Plaza before the game. The players walk the red carpet and they sign a bunch of autographs and they do the selfies and all that. There's also the little fan festival outside. There's beers, there's food. You got the cornhole, the couple other things. You got the video games. So it's always a good time. Highly recommend the home opener for those that may be considering it. Ethan says, I don't know if you know, but there's a group of about 200 Devils fans going to the Islanders home game versus the Devils and taking over. So that would be the October 3rd game. The Devils' second game of the season is the home opener for the Islanders. I don't know if you're going to take over UBS with 200 fans, but I certainly like the enthusiasm and the initiative. Marty Brodeur 111. Only reasons I still lean towards Quinn resigning. Russo stuck his neck way out. Must know something. 2, the delay could be for Quinn to decide 3 years or longer deal. For longer deal, Wild need Larkin, but have nothing to give up to get him. All right, so I'm going to come back to the chat in a little bit. Appreciate all of you, but we will get to Russo. And I know there's been, and this is not me trolling or anything whatsoever. There is a lot of trolling going on and smack talk on social media between Devils fans and Wild fans. And at the center of it is Mike Russo, because he put out that post a few weeks ago that the Wild called on Jack Hughes and just a bunch of nonsense. Obviously, Jack Hughes is going absolutely nowhere, as confirmed by Sonny Meta, in all the interviews he did last week or 2 weeks ago. But the latest from Russo, after being pretty positive that Quinn was going to sign the extension, this was last week. He says, believe Bill Guerin will be meeting with Quinn Hughes in his camp in Michigan today/this week. As we've long reported, Wild want to go 5 to 8 years, 7-year max term after September 16th in the new CBA. 3-year extension still makes the most sense for Quinn so he can align with Jack's deal in NJ. And then obviously the reference to the CBA is that up until September 16th, when the new CBA kicks in, Quinn Hughes could sign an 8-year extension. And then after September 16th, it goes down to the 7-year. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but it is something to take into consideration when looking at all this. But I will say, I'll pull this back up in a minute. From when he was first traded there and I saw that first press conference, I firmly believed that he was likely going to re-sign with Minnesota. And then after the whole Olympic thing, obviously, I thought kind of gave more credence to that whole situation. Familiarity with general manager Bill Guerin, the GM of Team USA Hockey, and then also playing in Minnesota with a pretty good team. I do think to some extent a lot of Devils fans have been kind of thumbing their nose at the Wild roster. And while it's not, I wouldn't say it's stacked per se, but you guys got to be realistic as Devils fans that as of right now, the majority of the world would say the Wild are the better team just based on the past few seasons, point totals, playoff appearances, and all of that. They're definitely not a juggernaut, but they're definitely not as bad as many people I think are trying to paint them as. But I certainly understand, I guess, where that's all coming from. But bottom line is, after the Olympics, after all that, nothing changed for me. I still thought that Quinn likely would re-sign there. Then we've seen the reports from Russo and Elliot Friedman, and then the owner of the Wild, Craig Leopold, which is probably maybe even like a month ago now, or a little over a month ago, made some pretty bold statements that I personally, I guess, put too much stock into. I didn't think he would so adamantly. He said something, I'm paraphrasing here because I don't remember exactly what it was, but I talked about it at the time. I think he said something along the lines of like, oh, we're definitely signing him. It's just a matter of, getting it done with the years and the money, but like it's a done deal. And, I fully understand that a lot of hockey executives, owners, GMs, whatever it may be, will kind of give the lip service to the media or the public, but that one, he could have phrased it a little differently. It was very direct, very adamant, and I didn't think he would make those bold claims or statements if he didn't truly believe it was going to happen. And who knows, maybe he still at the time firmly believed it was going to happen and still does, right? And again, Quinn hasn't done anything yet, so he very well still could sign in Minnesota. But the fact that it is now August 3rd, and there has been no extension yet, if you're a fan of the Minnesota Wild, you should certainly be worried at this juncture. Now, again, could he sign there in the next week, month? Absolutely. But after the way it was kind of framed by everybody, and again, Elliot Friedman, Russo, Friedman is reporting what he's being told, and so maybe Leopold and whoever else, I don't know, it could be a ton of propaganda, a ton of whatever. But the fact remains that Quinn Hughes has been eligible to sign said contract extension since July 1st, and it is now August 3rd, and it is still not done. And there's so many layers to this, so bear with me. I will get to the chat. I'm sure tons of you guys are going to be talking all kinds of stuff in here, and I'm very curious to see what you say. But I have a lot. I've been kind of ruminating on this over the past couple weeks. And so, yeah, August 3rd, still not done. I, for the life of me, cannot come up with any sort of plausible explanation as to what the delay could be. Now, I have a couple. I mean, I guess I can't say I have no kind of theories, right? I guess the one theory that would make the most sense is that, Quinn said he'll sign the 3-year deal, or the 3-year extension rather, and the Wild are really pushing for a longer one, and there's some back and forth banter there. That is a possibility. Could be the case. But if Quinn said, look, it's not going to happen, let's just do the 3 years. At that point, I would have to imagine the Wild would just take the 3 years and run with it if that's the best they were going to do. But who knows? Maybe internally that is the debate. He's trying to do the 3 years. The Wild are trying to push it up to more. That could be a thing. But, it's been a month now. And so if he said, listen, this is it, I'm not going to change my mind, you would think it would be done by now. I don't think money or anything else would be a hiccup. They're going to give him whatever he wants. He's earned it. He's worth it. One of the premier players in the league. And so for me, when you just look at the whole thing, what you have to think something's going on. And I'm not trying to get people's hopes up again, and I'm not trying to troll the Wild fans. I'm just thinking out loud here. But after a full month of when it was eligible to be done and it's still not being done, I think there could be something behind the scenes. Now we go to the theory of the 3-year thing. I think Elliot Friedman was the first person to kind of speculate that he might try to do the 3-year extension to line up with Jack Hughes free agency as well. And like in theory, that makes sense, right? It makes sense a little bit. But if you rewind to, I believe it was in April of 2025, shortly after the 24-25 season, so not the season that just ended, the season before that, at the end of that season, at the Vancouver Canucks media availability, their president, Jim Rutherford, literally told the entire world that Quinn Hughes wants to play with his brothers. And what I took that whole kind of media segment as, and it ended up being exactly what I thought it was Rutherford basically conditioning the Vancouver Canucks fans to understand that while they want to keep Quinn Hughes in Vancouver and they would do everything in their power to do so, that it was not a likely outcome. He wanted to play with his brothers, and at some point Quinn would be traded. Like, that's essentially, if you read between the lines, that's essentially what Rutherford told the entire world at that press conference. And what do you know? All of, 7 or 8 months later, early on in the season, this past season, the 25-26 season, the Canucks were terrible. and Rutherford decided to move Quinn Hughes. I believe it was in December. And I have to believe that we could talk about this kind of subplot of this whole thing forever, but it seemed as though Tom Fitzgerald was not ready to pull the trigger, and Billy Guerin and the Minnesota Wild swooped in and got Quinn Hughes. And what will be one of the biggest miscues in New Jersey Devils history, in my opinion, the fact that the guy, Quinn Hughes wanted to go to the Devils, obviously. Rutherford was ready and willing to trade him to the Devils, and Fitz just could not get it done for whatever reason. Again, we've talked about this, but I will forever believe it was a straight up cap crunch situation where he would not, where he couldn't find the cap relief in time to fit Quinn. But whatever, that's water under the bridge. Now it's over. Billy G swoops in. The Wild get Quinn Hughes. They go on to have a decent season. They win the gold. He's flying to Italy and back with Billy G on the private jet. He's playing with two of his Team USA teammates over there with Brock Faber and Matt Boldy. And so when you look at all that between Billy Guerin, Boldy, Faber, and the fact that the Wild are at a minimum competitive, right? You got to call them, they're at least a competitive team. It probably is one of the next best situations for Quinn Hughes outside of playing with his brothers, right? Obviously, playing with Jack and Luke is the premier destination, whatever you want to call it. That's number one. But then probably underneath that, I guess you could make a case for the Panthers now too, because they have both Kachucks. But the Wild are right there in terms of a comfortable environment, a team that's good. Minnesota is a hockey crazed city, and so it has all of those things going for it. And so again, Minnesota definitely a massive improvement over Vancouver for many reasons. And so it is one of those teams that would be, in my opinion, to Quinn Hughes, one of the next best things to playing with his brothers. But it is not playing with his brothers. And shout out to Steve the Maniac. My buddy Steve the Maniac and I have been texting on and off probably for weeks about this, about the whole Quinn situation. And the fact that it is still not done yet, I do believe there is a world, and again, this is just me thinking out loud and speculating, right? But the fact that it's not done August 3rd, there is a very real possibility that Quinn straight up has told them, appreciate the opportunity here. I think this is a decent team. I like the organization, the area, all that, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, like I told Jim Rutherford last year, or over a year ago now, I want to play with my brothers. Now, you go back to he could do the 3-year thing and it lines up with Jack. But yeah, that's great. That lines up with Jack. But what does that mean for Luke? Now, if you want to get into the weeds on this and play out the whole thing, do I believe in some hypothetical world, if Jack and Luke went to the same team in free agency, that Luke and his agent and everyone else could essentially strong arm the Devils to trade him to that team? I believe that could happen. I mean, players have more power than ever now. You're seeing it. You saw it with Brady Tkachuk. You see these other guys going to management and saying, I want out, all this stuff. And so the players are kind of reclaiming some power in that way. Not to say that they'll always get their way, but a lot of times if a guy says, and especially publicly, that I don't want to be here, teams are going to go out of their way or will do everything they can to facilitate a trade, whether it's to the team the player's asking for or not. It's a different story. But then you got guys with trade protection doing this. But bottom line is, it wouldn't be such an easy thing at that point either. It's not like, you line up your free agency seasons and then bam, we sign in the same place and it's, everything's great. You still have Luke, who would have, I believe, 2 years left with the Devils. And again, you could try to force the trade, but that adds another unnecessary step to it. And then when you're talking about the overlapping free agent seasons, right? If there was a world where, let's just say in this hypothetical exercise, that Quinn did sign the extension with the Wild for the 3 years and he lined up for free agency with Jack. Well, guess what? When it comes to the summer, just like it is now, the summer before the final year of the deal, you're right back to square one, because at that point, the Wild still won't want to lose Quinn Hughes for nothing if he's saying he's not going to re-sign there. If Jack Hughes tells the Devils, I'm not re-signing, then the Devils have a decision to make there as well. And so it's just a very messy situation when you look at this. You're talking about two guys potentially going into free agency together. They still have another brother with 2 years left of the Devils. And so when you look at the whole thing, you know, like Steve the Maniac says, these are all cute ideas. But if you want to play with your brothers, why wait? Why wait at all? And I didn't, again, want to get anyone. I'm not trying to troll. I'm not trying to get people excited about the possibility. I'm just thinking out loud here. But when you look at it, you know, why would they want to wait, right? Like, why would you wait? You're in the prime of your career for Quinn Hughes, or entering it. Luke is still not even anywhere near. He's still got a few years before he hits his prime. Jack is about to hit the top of that aging curve, as Sonny Maida calls it. And so, you know, why wait to kick the can down the road for a few years from now, where you will still need a bunch of things to line up and some other maneuvering and kind of tinkering for all three of them to play on the same team, when it's right in front of you right now. It's right there. It is right there. He is scheduled to be an unrestricted free agent on July 1 of 2027. And so if you want to play with your brothers, which makes perfect sense, we just saw Brady do it, facilitating or pushing for a trade to go to Florida to play with his brother. That may have been a little bit of a battery in the back of Quinn Hughes to be like, you know what, like, maybe I wasn't leaning in this direction beforehand, but it makes sense. Why wait? Why wait for all of these stars to align when it can happen sooner than later? And that the sooner could be July 1st, 2027, when he's an unrestricted free agent. Now, if he in fact has told the Wild he's not decided yet, or if he did in fact say that he has decided and he's not going to sign the extension, well, that certainly makes things interesting, right? Because that certainly puts Billy Guerin, the GM of the Minnesota Wild, in a precarious position. And as many of you who have watched me for a while know, I have nothing but the utmost respect for Bill Guerin for what he did as a player and as an executive. One of the nicest guys, just a great guy. 1995 Stanley Cup champion with the Devils, went on to win 2 rings as an assistant with Pittsburgh. Obviously, GM of the gold medal winning Team USA Hockey. Just a great guy. I did an interview with him on my old channel some months ago. If you're interested in seeing that, I had a great chat with Billy Guerin. And I love Billy G. But I think he might be in a very sticky situation right now, because if Quinn Hughes does in fact, whether it's already happened or if it happens in the next week, 2 weeks, whenever it is, if Quinn Hughes tells him, you know, I'm sorry, Billy, but I really do want to play with my brothers, I'm not going to sign the extension, well, then that certainly makes things interesting, because then Billy Guerin has a few different options to choose from. The first option, which would be the ballsiest and possibly the most dangerous, would be to go into the season with no extension in place, which I think could be maniacal. And if anyone in the league were to do this, I think it probably would be Billy G. If they go into the season with no Quinn Hughes extension, the number one thing is it's obviously going to be a monumental distraction of all distractions, in my opinion. If the season starts, you see what it is right now in the summer, right? If the season starts and there's no extension in place, it's going to be talked about relentlessly. Now, you know, in terms of why would they do that, I don't know. Is it possible that Quinn's kind of giving them the we'll wait and see how the season goes kind of thing? That is possible. But it is funny to me that people keep, mostly Wild fans, I think, just trying to bring up other scenarios and Kaprizov and this guy or guys on other teams. Like, this situation is unlike any of those other situations. Yeah, it's similar in the fact that you're talking about a guy going into the last year of his deal without an extension. But when you're talking about a guy that has made it known he wants to play with his brothers, and the GM of his former team told the entire planet during a press conference that he wanted to play with his brothers, you're not comparing apples to apples here. This is a completely different scenario when you're talking about a guy wanting to go join his 2 brothers versus these other guys going into the final season of their deals with no extensions. Totally different. They're not comparable whatsoever in that regard. But They could go into the season with no extension, hope that he either changes his mind or something happens where he will sign an extension, which obviously poses a lot of risk, mainly, injury. If Quinn Hughes were to get injured for any sort of time, that would certainly affect any sort of value he would have in a trade. And if it was a bad injury, I mean, God forbid, you're looking at a situation where you wouldn't have him on the Wild and you wouldn't be able to trade him and recoup any of the assets you spent to get him. So there's an inherent built-in kind of risk or gamble, if you will, to start the season without the contract extension in place. It's possible, and it very well may end up being what happens, or he may just sign the extension in the next week or two. But I'm just thinking out loud here. If they start the season without the contract extension in place, certainly some gutsy stuff, I would say, by the Wild. And at that point, if they go into the season and there is no extension and the season's rolling on, then you also have another two options there. And then it's the craziest one, which would be totally wild, in my opinion, that you are willing to go into the playoffs, assuming the Wild are in a playoff spot, go into the playoffs with Quinn Hughes and be willing to lose him for absolutely nothing in the summer. I think it would be crazy. I would totally respect it. That's a complete all-in move. Like, all-in move. We're going to just take our chances, try to win this cup with Quinn Hughes, and if he leaves in the summer, so be it, which at that point, I think it'd be a foregone conclusion, right? Like, if he doesn't have the contract extension in place and somehow he's still on the Wild and they go into the playoffs, I think at that point it's a foregone conclusion that he's not going to re-sign there. That's possibility number one. And again, the biggest risk and gamble, because if they did not win the cup and Billy held on to Quinn Hughes, did not trade him, and then he leaves in free agency, the media and some fans would absolutely tear him apart just because of the price he paid to get Quinn Hughes for 2 runs, essentially 2 playoff runs, 2 seasons, most of, or a good chunk of last season in the playoffs. And then obviously this whole season in this scenario, this upcoming season, it would be a very, very, very high risk move to do that. Is it possible that he does it? I think so. Is it likely? I'd have to believe that as much as it would kill Billy Guerin, if it was abundantly clear the extension was not coming, I think they would try to trade him and recoup whatever assets they could. I think they would have no choice. Your hand is kind of forced. That's the first option. The second option, which has a couple sub options from it. The second option is, in this hypothetical world where he has told the Wild he's not signing the extension, then the Wild say, okay, we tried our best. Quinn's not signing here. Now it's time to trade him before the season starts. Trade him before the season starts. He's not signing. We gotta recoup here. Trade him before the season starts. Obviously, in this exercise, his value would be highest to the New Jersey Devils, just because of the fact that it would be, again, a foregone conclusion that, if Quinn Hughes is traded to the Wild, the Hughes brother reunion is on and Quinn is signing a long-term deal in New Jersey to be with his brothers. And so for that reason, you would think highest package or best value you are going to get is from the New Jersey Devils. Now, in this world where Billy G put the flares out and said Quinn is available, there certainly would be other teams interested in obtaining him, even for a known 1 year. Because if Billy G does put him on the block, that alerts the entire hockey world that he's going to the Devils at that point. Because if he didn't sign with the Wild, it's not like, I won't sign with the Wild, but I'll consider signing somewhere else that's not New Jersey. Like, no. If he's on the block, that means he's going to the Devils, and anyone looking to trade for Quinn Hughes would have him for next season only. Now, again, this option could also be entertained at the trade deadline. I do think the value would be diminished somewhat from what Billy Guerin could get before the season starts. I think you would get more for him than if you waited to the deadline, but he certainly could wait to the deadline as well. They could start the season. They could go on, talk about this extension here and there and hope that he changes his mind. And then if nothing comes to fruition at the deadline, then trade him at the deadline. That's a possibility as well. But back to the trading him in the summer thing. there certainly would be tons of contending teams that would believe getting Quinn Hughes could put them over the hump and really make them a true Stanley Cup contender. And the crazy thing is, you could make the argument that most playoff teams, if they added Quinn Hughes, that would make them a legitimate contender, or at least a mid-tier contender. Maybe not like a top few teams, but any team that was a playoff team, if you add Quinn Hughes, that's definitely going to push you much closer to contender status. And so the question then would become, what is the maximum price a team would pay for Quinn Hughes for a known one-season run only? Now, I do think teams would pay more than many people would believe, but they are not going to make Billy Guerin whole and give him back the equivalent of the assets he spent to get Quinn Hughes for only one season, which was like a guaranteed one season. That will not happen either. So there would be, in this scenario, call it a net loss to Billy Guerin, just because for one season, you're not getting back all the pieces you gave up. But it certainly would be interesting what teams would throw their name in the ring to try to get Quinn Hughes for that one season. And I do think teams would pay more than people would believe. I do think some teams probably would pay a first and a roster player, maybe. I'd be very curious to see what you guys think. I'm going to get to the comments in a couple minutes here. Very curious. But then at that point, and this is where it gets super interesting, if Billy did put him on the market, there'd be several teams interested for sure. Depending on the price, would Sonny Maeda be willing to top those deals to bring Quinn Hughes in now? Or would Sonny just sit back and say, you know what, I'd love to have Quinn now, but these teams are going to pay a little more than I would want to pay, knowing that I can sign him on July 1st for absolutely nothing, for free. Now, this is where it gets, and then I'm very curious to see what you guys say about this, because there's going to be people on both sides of the fence here as well. There is a tremendous value in this hypothetical world. There is a tremendous value to having Quinn Hughes now rather than for next season. Every season is super crucial. I've been talking about this for years. This team should firmly be in win now mode, and years have been burning off of this core. During the Tom Fitzgerald administration, unfortunately, too many seasons were squandered of this core, and years are precious, and years go by like this. You got the core guys approaching 30 outside of Jack, with Jesper Bratt, Nico Hischier, Timo Meier, all approaching 30. The time to win is now. This is a huge season coming up, the 26-27 season for the Devils. And if they could get Quinn Hughes now, instead of waiting the year, there's tremendous value in that. Tremendous. The question is, what is that value to Sonny Maeda? Because as you know, Sonny Maeda, very methodical, very surgical. He wants to win now and later and try to keep the window open for as long as possible. So I do believe in this hypothetical world, if Quinn Hughes was being shopped, that Sonny Maeda would certainly be interested. But the thing that we don't know is what would be his max package, if you will. What is the max package he would be willing to offer to have Quinn now versus waiting till next summer when he could get him for absolutely free? Because, as many of you know, the 27-28 season, the season after this upcoming season, the Devils are going to have a boatload of cap space, like $30-something million. And then obviously the Devils, as a result of the Shimo Nemitz trade a month or two ago, whenever that was, have a lot of draft capital. And so I can see a world, again, if you could get Quinn now, I think you do it, assuming the price is fair. But if the price seems high, I could see a world where Sonny Maeda says, you know what? As much as I want Quinn now, I don't want to pay that price. I will get him for free on July 1st, and I will use some of the assets that I did not have to spend to bring Quinn here on other pieces. Because if you look at it, between the deadline of this upcoming season, between the deadline and then the summer, the next offseason, the draft, free agency. If Sonny still has all those draft picks with that cap space, there could be significant moves. And again, I'm not trying to get people excited or sell you a dream or anything, but the table is being set right now, in my opinion, for an absolutely meteoric series of acquisitions at some point between the trade deadline in March and the start of the 27-28 season. With the cap space, with the draft capital, the possibilities are endless. And so I do think Sonny Maeda is closely monitoring the situation, seeing how the chips fall. But if Quinn Hughes does not sign that extension, I would say it's a pretty safe bet to say that he will be a New Jersey Devil on July 1st, 2027. And if the Devils don't trade for him before that and still have all that, draft capital in the waiting, you could see a world where the Devils land. And again, this could, for the player or players outside of Quinn Hughes, it could happen at the deadline. It could happen, leading up to the draft, at the draft, free agency, whatever it is. But the table would be set for an absolute monstrous series of events where you see the Devils get Quinn Hughes and maybe another top player or two, depending, with the draft picks that he could trade. And that's not, including other prospects and other pieces or maybe roster players, but just in terms of first round picks and all that cap space, the possibilities would be endless, but I'm super curious to see how this plays out. Like I said, August 3rd, I'm already wrong on the front of, I had long predicted that Quinn resigns in Minnesota, extends in Minnesota, and I thought it was going to be done early July. So I'm already wrong on that front. The timing of it, and listen, and I said at the time that I said it, I said, if I'm wrong about this, I will happily admit that I was wrong. I'm not one of these people that needs to be right all the time. I know there's a lot of you guys out there, but I'm certainly not one of them. I can admit when I was wrong. And at this juncture, I've already been wrong about the timing. I thought first week of July, this was going to be a done deal. I never in a million years thought this would go on into August. And the fact that we are, 2 hours away from August 4th, I certainly think by nothing more than logic, the percentage with each passing day that goes by without an extension, the percentage goes up just at least a little bit for me that the extension is just not going to happen, because I just can't make sense of it. But it's certainly a very intriguing situation that, Devils and Wild fans are kind of going at each other on social media about, and who knows what's going on behind the scenes. But if I were a Minnesota Wild fan, I certainly would be feeling very uneasy about this, because after all the chatter we heard that it was a foregone conclusion and all these things, the fact that it hasn't been done yet would certainly leave an uneasy, queasy feeling in my stomach. And so we'll see, but I'm going to get into, I appreciate all of you going to get into the chat here. You guys look very chatty. Let me see what we got here. Crads519, thank you for the super. I got here late, but great stuff as always. Here's my paltry tax for being late and an overall bum. Well, it's better late than never, right? But thank you for the super. All right, here we go. BMP says, I am surprised Quinn is not signed yet. Still, I don't think he's coming to the Devils anytime soon. You never know. But if that extension doesn't happen, July 1, 2027 would be a pretty good bet. Bobby said, I think I already know the answer. Would you rather have Quinn or Larkin? Take out the brother aspect. Larkin would give us one of the deepest top 9 in the league, but having Quinn and a game changer. Bobby, for this one, for me, as much as I do like Larkin and think he'd be a great add for the Devils and many other teams in the NHL, for this particular one, I would rather see Quinn. I just think Quinn is just such a game breaker, such a unique talent. I think he has an overall bigger impact on the Devils than Larkin would. So I definitely have to go with Quinn there. Zach says, just got here, not sure what you discussed. Quinn has an opportunity this year to play with his brothers, all entering primes almost. I can't see him signing in Minnesota unless the family decides the state is the Hughes state. So back to what I was talking about with Steve the Maniac. When you see the summer of the Hughes brothers, right? I'm probably going to even forget some stuff. But early on in the summer, they were down at the Jersey Shore. And again, this is not to say that, oh, he's been around a lot, that means that much. But obviously, again, we know he wanted to play with his brothers. Rutherford told the world. They spend their off seasons together traveling. A lot of times they're in Michigan and wherever else they are. But because of the gold medal hoopla and Jack Hughes being the golden boy, they've been in the area a lot. It started off with a month or two ago. There was a lot of photos and videos of them kind of hanging out at the Jersey Shore. As many of you that live in New Jersey know, the Jersey Shore is phenomenal in the summer. And for young 20-somethings to be out and about, a great place to be in the summer. And then we saw them together at the ESPY Awards. Obviously, Jack got snubbed for what an egregious snub, by the way. With all due respect to the OG Anunoby tip, was a great play. It was not play of the year. Should have been the golden goal. But Team USA was also up for team of the year. And obviously the Knicks won that as well. But we saw that Jack and Quinn on the red carpet went to the ESPYs. They went to the after party. Then, a week or two later, they were at the World Cup. And then you see them in the city. And so they're just brothers doing brotherly summer things, hanging out, enjoying everything that the tri-state area has to offer. You kind of get the best of everything in New Jersey. You have the beaches, you have the city close by, and Quinn's just getting further, in the mix, if you will, this summer. And when you do look at it, I don't put as much stock into it as Steve the Maniac does. But when you look at it, you're like, yeah, you're obviously having the time of your life. And you could do this every summer, hypothetically, no matter where you play. But if you're Quinn, I mean, it would be pretty cool for your day-to-day life to be like that, wouldn't it? With your brothers in this area. It really gets you to think. Stickfix says, I mean, it can't be possibly worse than the Gotham Sports app. No, definitely not. Zupamaki, what's going on? Keep the content coming, Ace. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you. Brandon says Sonny has 1 year to figure out how to dump Dougie. Brandon, I don't think, based on what we have seen and heard from Sonny Maeda, I do not think they are going to be looking to dump, as you put it, Dougie Hamilton anytime soon. And as many of you know, I've defended Dougie vigorously for quite some time. I understand to some extent a little bit of the frustration with some people with him, but the way some people were just talking about Dougie was just downright disrespectful. The guy has value to the Devils, and lots of other teams would be thrilled to have him. Rendich says, I want to believe that the whole Larkin adding Mini to his list thing and not the Devils makes me cautious, having too much hope. Again, and shame on me for putting stock into it, because there is a lot of like BS that gets kind of reported and regurgitated as propaganda or talking points or whatever. But I really did not think that the Wild owner Leopold would have so boldly been like, oh, we're signing him, if that wasn't the case. But here we are, August 3rd, and nothing. But the whole Larkin thing, who even knows? At this point now, I question everything. And I said this, I think, on one of the most recent lives that like people are like, not only do you have to question everything you hear, but now it's like what you see too. The people are doing the AI photos and all these things. So it's like we live in a world where who the hell knows what's real and what's not. But the Larkin list, who even knows if that's real? But I have to believe that if push came to shove, with or without Quinn, if somehow the Devils were in on Larkin or expressed interest, that he would at least consider it. Then Play on Pictures says, my brain tells me he's signing in Minnesota, but I can't help but think how much Jack loves the tri-state, how much there is to do here, how much they love each other, the Sunny factor, and so much more. I'm assuming you're talking about Quinn. MK Chomp on this. What's going on? Dirty 1313 Bird says, do you actually think a 3-goalie system with Allen, Riddick, and Dawes will actually work? We're going to find out, right? We're going to find out. I do think this is, as I've said from the beginning, this is a sizable bet on Nico Dawes. I do think if you see Riddick play any more than like his 84 games, and again, I'm an old school guy, as you guys all know. I grew up watching goaltending greats of the 90s and 2000s. You know, obviously the great Martin Brodeur, Patrick Waugh, Eddie Belfour, Cujo, all these guys that played tons of games. And while the game is different, the approach with goaltending is a stark difference. I think it could work. I do think you do need to have your main guy in that 45 to 50 range. And then if you're doing this 3 goalie system, like the other guys, the second guy's got to be at least 25 to 35 games. So I don't know. I don't love the idea. I certainly understand the rationale behind it. And I'm still kind of wrapping my brain around getting more accustomed to it. I do think you will probably see more teams do something like this when, I guess, for lack of a, when they don't have a better option. I still don't know that any team would set out or make it a goal to use 3 goalies. It kind of seems like something you would do more as a necessity than like a plan, but we'll see. I think if Riddick plays any more than like a dozen games max, that would be problematic, I think, because that would mean that one of the other 2 guys, I don't think were pulling their weight or playing to the level that the team was counting on. But in my opinion, it has a chance to work for sure. I think, for the most part, what you're going to get with Jake Allen, assuming he doesn't just fall off a cliff, and I don't think that's going to happen just yet. It's a sizable bet on the upside of Nico Daws and to see what he does with this opportunity that's in front of him, because it's a golden opportunity. If he comes in there and looks like he belongs and plays well, I do think there is a shot you see Daws play 45-ish games. This is his moment. Dirty 1313 Bird with 24 forwards in training camp. Who do you think gets cut first? Oh, I'm going to do all kinds of stuff like this closer to the season. Can Jack and Luke stay healthy enough to get us back into the playoffs? I am going to say yes. Dakota, Russo loves creating drama. Well, it all started with, I guess, people going at him for his reports not, coming to fruition quick enough. And then he he put the thing about the Wild calling on Jack. It just got kind of carried away. But summertime, right, guys? Summertime drama. Blah, 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 blah. Dirty 1313 Bird. Do we overpay by giving Luke Hughes a $9 million contract extension so early? Yeah, absolutely. The Devils overpaid, but that is how these things work. Dirty 1313 Bird. We talked about this in depth when it happened. The thought process behind it is when you sign a guy like that it was a 7-year deal at $9 million a year, you know that you're going to be likely overpaying for the first year or 2 of the contract. That was last year was the first year. This would be year 2. But when you look at the salary cap consistently going up and the contract some of these guys are signing, the thought process behind this is that while you might be overpaying for years 1 and 2, that in years 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, Luke Hughes is a $12, $13 million, or at least $11, $12 million market value defenseman, and you have a bargain in him at that deal. That is the thought process behind it. And I do believe, I'm not going to say this year, but I think in the next couple years, the Luke Hughes $9 million AAV will be looked at as a bargain for what he brings. Rendich 2 says, well, what team would be better, the Wild with Quinn or the Devils with Quinn? So it's funny you mentioned this. Another thing I was talking about with Steve the Maniac the other day, and it is true, because at first I was like, the Wild playoff team that had 104 points, I think, in the regular season, like they are a better team than the Devils. But then when you look at it, like what team is better with Quinn Hughes? Is the Wild with Quinn Hughes a better team, or the Devils with Quinn Hughes? And at this juncture, I do firmly believe that the Devils with Quinn Hughes are a better team than the Wild with Quinn Hughes. When you just look at their rosters and you compare them, I think a lot of people would agree with that. Obviously, probably not Wild fans, but Quinn Hughes is a huge piece. You take him off that Minnesota team, you're like, okay, they still could be in the mix, but no one would be nearly as high on them as they are with him. And if you put Quinn Hughes on the Devils, you're like, okay, I'm not going to say the Devils are a Quinn Hughes away from being a legit contender, but it certainly makes them much closer to one. That is for damn sure. Stick Figs, Quinn has been spending too much time in New Jersey during the offseason to think him coming to the Devils in 3 years or less is completely off the table. Oh, not at all. Traveling Devil, what's going on? What do you got? What do you got? Annie Past as your photo there? Some meats. He's got some Italian sorted meats in the profile picture. Hughes brothers contract drama, even though they probably aren't looking for it. Just come to New Jersey and get it over with. Dirty 13 Bird, is Sheldon Keefe on the hot seat if the team starts slow in October? I mean, what is a slow start? Like, it depends on what is your definition of a slow start. Like, if they're absolutely horrible, which I don't think will happen, then sure. But I think he's going to get at least a little bit leeway, even though many of the fans seem to be ravenous. And I've talked about how I believe the nature of sports fans is to blame the coach because it's easier to do that than to just be like, this roster ain't it. But another guy I've defended forever was Sheldon Keefe. I told you guys I thought he was not getting proper support from Tom Fitzgerald and some of those rosters. When you look at it, you're like, what did you want this guy to do? He did the best with what he had. But, if you're talking about maybe closer to the new year and the team's like severely struggling, could he be on the hot seat? Sure. But I think this team is going to be good enough to where that's not really a talking point. Bella Michelle says Russo said end of week, but their grandma died, and I'm sure that delayed getting anything done maybe this week or next. I mean, but this just seems like, and condolences to the family. I did see that their grandmother passed. That certainly could put a delay on things, but again, their grandmother passed like a few days ago, I believe. So, what the whole month of July this could have got done. It's not nearly as complex as people are making it out to be. And so when you just sit back and look at it, and again, he could sign next week, he could sign mid-August, he could sign late August, but you just really have to wonder, why hasn't it happened yet? Meadowlander says, watch the Quinn signing very closely. If he signs for 3 years, it will tip the hand of the Hughes family plan for 2030. Sonny will have to move Jack by 2028 to get value back. This is, I don't disagree at all. I mean, I don't agree at all, Meadowlander. If he signs for 3 years, it means nothing other than, to me, that him and Jack are looking to be free agents at the same time to give themselves some options. But I certainly don't think it means anything whatsoever in terms of, the Devils having to trade Jack. I just think that's crazy. Dirty 13-13 Bird, can Timo Meier finally bounce back and score 40 goals this year? It's going to be tough with that power play one time. I do think he has the potential, but that would be playing power play one regularly, which I do not think is going to be the case. And so I think 40 is really kind of pipe dreamy for him. Memphis Tigers on 3. If he truly wants to play with his brothers, why wait 3 years when you could wait 1? That's kind of where I'm starting to be at now. It is right there. Why kick the can down the road with injuries and things? You never know what's going to happen. Like, why risk it and just take the path of least resistance, which is to sign with the Devils as a free agent on July 1, 2027, if not traded before that. I'm going to scroll up to catch up a little bit here. Dirty 13 Bird, do you think Dawson Mercer is a top 6 forward or a third-line utility guy? He's still super young. Like, people, and another guy I've defended because so many people are out for blood on Dawson Mercer, but he's only 24. At this juncture, I do not think he's a legitimate top 6 forward. Could he become one day? It's possible, but I do think he is a good third liner. I'm trying to catch up here to be more current. I apologize. You guys are very, very chatty. I'm super far behind here. Bella Michelle says, I'm going to miss Marky. He was a nice guy. I talked to Marky a couple times. He was a very nice guy, very intense, which I liked. Ultimate competitor, fiery dude, wanted to win. You saw that in several different instances during his time with the Devils. But as Sonny Meda pointed out, he really wanted to bring in Evan Rodriguez, and Markey was the guy that was able to help facilitate that. Dirty 13 Bird, if the Devils play the Rangers in the playoffs, do you think we could beat them? Yeah, I mean, I would have to pick the Devils over the Rangers in a playoff series for sure. Slang Ice 222, Wild would be smart to do a sign and trade if Quinn told them he isn't resigning. It would maximize the value considering they could do the 8th year. Yeah, but in the end, like, I've thought about this too, but even if they trade him to the extension is a foregone conclusion with the Devils anyway. So how much does that one extra year really matter? I would say it's not a huge difference. Jason says the Devils can literally wait and get him for nothing. Completely agree, Snow. But do you think what do you think the value is to having him for a year sooner? Adam G says, honestly, part of me wants Sonny to trade for Quinn if for no other reason than to shut all the Jack Hughes trade chatter up. There's no legitimate Jack Hughes trade chatter, Adam. Any sort of Jack Hughes trade chatter is just beyond ridiculous, just nonsense, quite frankly. It's just complete nonsense. Jack Hughes is not being traded anytime soon. Dakota said, I feel like if Quinn wasn't going to resign, there would be insiders reporting on it already. I mean, that would require the insiders getting that information. There's definitely a lot of potential for things like this to not escape to the insiders. Also, keep in mind the insiders were reporting a while back that they expected the deal to be done pretty soon also. So, insiders can only go on the information that they've been given. And it certainly seems like there may have been some misinformation going around, but we're never going to know until something happens. Renich says not getting Quinn cost Fitz his job. I'm sure ownership will tell Sonny you spare no asset if he's available. So on that point, I do believe that the owners would love to get Quinn Hughes as soon as possible, but I do believe that Sonny, depending on the price, if he thought it was excessive, he would be able to convince ownership that it was in the best interest of the team to wait to sign him in free agency. Jason says we have no sandpaper up front. Completely agree with that as well. I'm wondering if we see a move to bring some of that in, or if some guys really try to embrace that. But as it stands right now, Snow, I do agree. Like, where is it coming from? Narcy says the price seeming high is why you didn't get him in the first place. It could be, but I believe it was cap space. I don't think Fitzgerald could have made the cap space quickly, and I don't think that he anticipated Rutherford looking to deal him so soon. Rendich says a year with Quinn on a bargain contract with our players in their primes is worth a lot, in my opinion. I completely agree too. But what is a lot, Rendich? Are you going to give up multiple firsts, a prospect, and a roster player? Like, where do you draw the line? Dakota says, I hate being a Wild and a Vikings fan. Why did I do this to myself? How long have you been a Vikings fan? They had some decent seasons with Randy Moss. Steve Millwood says, I'd trade Mercer-Salive in a first for Quinn if he told the Wild he isn't re-signing. It's interesting. Mercer-Salive in a first. I'd be curious if Sonny would part with that exact package, or just say, I'll wait the year. It's interesting. Sax Cat says, I'm just saying, why didn't Quinn sign when Billy G visited? It's the multi-million-dollar question, right? If this was such a foregone conclusion as everyone, or at least several media people were reporting, then why are we still talking about it? That's the thing I just keep coming back to. Crad says, I don't feel good trading Salayev. He might not be the offensive threat people thought. Still up for debate, though. But he's going to be a great defensive defenseman, something the team will need. And he's a monster. And he's an absolute monster. I'm very curious to get a look at him. 6'7", 211. 20 years old. Beast. Steve says, for Quinn, I'd totally do it. Jay Snow, Quinn, we need a number 1 D-man. Tim Fritz says that the Wild will never trade Quinn Hughes to the Devils, period. Well, I think there's definitely a chance that they would. If the Devils offered the best package in this world where he was on the clock. Seabone says the time is now. Jer Bear says, I still think Billy is going to get Quinny to sign. These kind of contracts always take time to get done. I can't fathom for the life of me why. It shouldn't be that big of a thing. Matthew E says, one conspiracy to think about, one of the 3 teams on Larkin's trade list is Minnesota. Larkin is best friends with Quinn. I don't see him wanting to go to Minnesota if he knew Quinn was leaving. Well, maybe he didn't know that. And that's certainly interesting, too. From Bobby, I think Jack is trying to get Larkin here. Larkin has been hanging out with the Hughes brothers at the shore. I think that was in the city. Joe Raz says, until an extension is done, I still believe he'll be a Devil eventually. Geese Feeder, most of the media is still saying they expect Quinn Hughes to sign in Minnesota, but hard to believe anyone what's going to happen at this point. Yeah, I mean, we're almost 5 weeks into this thing. Jason, Allen can't play a ton of games. He starts to break down. I think they'll split it up unless Dawes actually takes over the net. It's an exciting opportunity for Dawes. Huge, huge opportunity for Dawes. Jay Face says, I can't wait anymore. I need Devils hockey. Dre White says Quinn is the best D-man in the NHL. Well, if he's not the best, he's in the top 2 or 3. I mean, I think most people will give the nod to Makar and put him at 2. Ryder says, you think Casey steals a job? It's possible. I'm going to say no. But he could be like one of the guys right on the bubble. But there's just so many defensemen. And I guess his outlook could be slightly more positive if the Devils end up trading a defenseman or 2, obviously, before training camp. But right now, there is a ton of defensemen. Snow, I'd love to see Dawes take the net. Jay Fay, 8-9 weeks and Devils hockey returns. Randall Flagg, I'd never heard of Russo till the Quinn stuff. Okay, he's a kind of a big deal. Ryder says, if Dawes steals the net, we are in very good shape. He's got the opportunity of a lifetime here. Patterson Plank Road, good evening. The Quinn Hughes thing certainly has the interest of lots of people, entertaining at the least. Oh, it's certainly interesting. Bobby says, we need to keep Dougie. Without Dougie, we have next to no offense from the blue line. Jet, you're not kidding. Dougie gets way too much hate. Oh, it's certainly true, Randall Flagg. It's been going on for quite some time. I still have the scars and battle wounds from defending Dougie for a while. David Chime says, telling you Quinn ends up on the Flyers. This is a bold prediction. They have more cap space and need a more rivalry marketing bonanza. Quinn still summers with bros, not trolling, real possibility. I mean, are you talking about for 1 year or long term? I cannot see it long term whatsoever. Would they maybe temporarily lose their minds and trade for him for the 1 year? Maybe, but like, does anyone really believe that Quinn Hughes on the Flyers is making them a contender right away? I mean, Jared Barnes, where do you see Grits playing this year? Also, what do you think his potential is? I think he's going to get at least a look in the top 6, and I think his potential is pretty high. One of the more exciting storylines to come out of a disappointing 25-26 Devil season is the the future potential of Arseniy Gritsuk. What will it be? But I think he's going to get some opportunity this season, and I'm very excited to see what he does with it. Patterson Plank Road, good question. What is the upside of acquiring Quinn Hughes a season earlier? Well, it's a season more of hoping to truly contend. It's another season of contending with a core that is aging quickly. It's not over yet, guys, but this is not the baby Devils that people were talking about years ago. Like, oh, their time's gonna come. Everyone's so young. Like, everyone's not so young anymore. I mean, they're in good shape in terms of the ages of the best players, but that's not going to last forever. And so you gotta kind of pounce when there's pouncing to be had. Matthew E says, if Devils don't go on a long playoff run this year, then Jack is requesting out. Don't think he'll end up in Minnesota, though. Most likely Rags. Do you really believe what you're typing, or are you just trolling? There's no reason to believe if they don't go on a long playoff run, Jack is asking out. It's just so ridiculous. Six Pack Pops, one of the biggest winners of a Quinn here now will be Luke, having both brothers to hold you accountable and also to help you develop. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the many cool things about playing with your brothers. Michael asks if the deal was done, Quinn's agent would sprint it right over. The agent wants his cut too. The delay is not because Quinn was on vacation or their grandmother's untimely passing. I think there could be something going on. SJ Mini is sure that Quinn will resign. Don't know how they are so sure. Neither do I. Joe Cade, thank you for the super. Regardless of what information they were fed, don't you feel there needs to be some journalistic accountability for both Russo and Friedman in the event Quinn doesn't resign? Regurgitating info from your sources isn't a cop-out. No. The Russo, and again, you're grouping Russo and Friedman. While they have said some of the same kind of thoughts or whatever, Russo's whole kind of spin, it was wildly different than Elliot Friedman's, in my opinion. Elliot Friedman, I guess, going back some months ago, I think, was the one that said, I think we'll see a 3-year extension to overlap to coincide rather with Jack Hughes' free agency. And then earlier in the summer, he said, I think it's going to be the 3-year deal. And I think he even threw out the 17 to 18 million. And that is just Friedman going on the information he was given. Russo kind of turned it into a whole nother thing. Because of the people flaming him and trolling him, it kind of became this back and forth. And then he's like, the Wild called on Jack, and like he was doing clickbait, and it was all that totally different, in my opinion, from what happened with Friedman. And if Quinn doesn't re-sign there, that literally, in terms of Friedman, no one's right 100% of the time. So I'm not going to be like, oh, Elliot Friedman's terrible. And it wouldn't be a cop-out. If that's the information he was given and it was from a source that he trusted or thought was trustworthy, again, no one's right 100% of the time. So I don't know what to tell you, but I do think what Russo did and what Friedman did, wildly different. Ethan, how are we feeling about LeBron being now an employee of Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment? I don't really care about basketball. I did when I was younger, but I kind of checked out for the most part after the Nets left New Jersey. But it is certainly interesting that, that LeBron is now playing for a Harris Blitzer Sports Entertainment owned team, a mega superstar, obviously globally, one of the greatest NBA players of all time. And I am sure the 76ers are going to be making truckloads of money from merch and tickets and all of that. And so definitely a massive, massive win for the Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment Group for sure. I mean, having LeBron James is the marketing team's wildest dream. All right, let me get back to the chat here. Mike Van Houten, thank you for the super. I don't see a message there. I will see if there is one further down here. Randall Flax says, I don't care what our roster is if it brings results. All right, that was that. Jay Snow, they made more AHL signings than I've ever seen. Yeah, again, Sonny told the world. Depth is very important. He realized the cupboard was pretty bare. The AHL team was in shambles, and he's trying to give the team options when they need them. Depth is important, and we saw it for several years now. When a guy got hurt, everyone was like, oh, who are they going to call up from Utica? And it was like, mostly underwhelming guys that, got a couple games each. No one really stood out or stuck around, and it was just kind of a rotation of that. And that's, why Justin Dowling played however many games he played that year. I mean, wow. Randall Flax says Fitz signed plenty of AHLers. The difference was he tried them in the NHL. Yeah. Jay Snow, need a Jordan Stahl type player, a big shutdown center. I've wanted to see the Devils add a big center for years. We've talked about it in here. Get a big bruising center. They're just not as abundant as they once were. Okay, so you're a fan after Randy Moss. Randall Flax says Mercer, Salive, and a first for Quinn. You do that any day? Bobby says, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Salive playing for the Comets this year? I think that would be the kind of consensus prediction for where he plays, but who knows? I can't see him cracking the Devils lineup right away, but I wouldn't say it's impossible. A big training camp and preseason in combination with, again, some of these other defensemen getting traded out, because it is a very crowded blue line at the moment. Then Play on Picture says, so many people have so many assumptions. The only thing we know for sure is it's August and there is no deal, and it's weird. I think that's a pretty fair summary. SJ says Casey is a good puck mover on the blue line. Maybe he improves. We can use the skill on the back end. Yeah, his season, I think he had several injuries last season. Obviously, one of those guys where you look at the small sample size we saw from him a couple years ago, and he showed flashes of brilliance in the offensive zone. I think most of the criticism or worry came in the D zone, where he kind of got pinned in sometimes, and I think felt the pressure. And it'll be interesting to see what he looks like in camp and most likely preseason. David Chime says Casey, most overhyped prospect, needs an AHL season healthy before thinking about jumping. Villain is ahead of him on the depth chart right now, pretty sure. There's a lot of guys. Husky Unchained says Jake Allen on Daily Faceoff. Paul Cotter has the nastiest mitts I've ever seen in my life. Makes his own teammates look like beer league players. He's too good to not have a breakout year. I've been meaning to watch that. I haven't seen that interview yet. Randall Flax says, who is more hated on the Devils roster by the masses, Dougie or Timo? Oof. That one would be close. Rendich, too, with another theory, says, I also think Quinn did intend to sign a 3-year deal with Minnie after the playoffs, but then spent the last 2 months in the area with his brothers, and that could have changed his mind. Totally. That's a totally plausible hypothesis as well, that he was like, oh, I'll sign with the Wild, and then the summer came, and they're down the shore, and they're going to the city, and they're doing all these things, and he was like, you know what? Why do I want to wait 4 years and all of these random scenarios to align to make it happen if we could just do it now? Or by now meaning July 1st, 2027, if a trade didn't materialize before that. Jason says Brat and Timo need to have big years. Completely agree. Tons of guys need to have big years. Russo's clearly a child. Justin says no one likes LeBron. Jordan is better. End of discussion. A lot of the young people will tell you that a lot of the young folks will tell you that LeBron is better, which I think is crazy. Very good player, but there's only one Jordan. Jason knows that I hope Van Hannon does turn into something. He did play with a ton of talent last year, including Dew Point, who's going to be #1 pick this year. Yeah, Van Hannon looked really good. He looked very good to me in development camp. I'll drop the link if you haven't seen him. I'll drop the link in. Oh, there's 2 links. I just dropped it in the chat. That is the day 1 of development camp video, and then let me drop the second one. But yeah, he looked really good to me. I hope I'm able to catch some of his college games this year. I just put the links in the chat. Patterson Plank Road. I read about the contract Celebrini signed with San Jose. Now that is busting the bell curve. Just wait until next offseason. Free agent asks are going to rise dramatically. Yeah, I tried to tell everybody this last year, that once the news came out about the cap, that you were about to see a whole new world. The new cap era, and contracts are going to get crazy. Yeah, I mean, Celebrini's the highest paid now. That'll last probably not that long, and then someone will top that. But Celebrini's a freak of nature. Kid's a beast. Jer Bear said, I live in Minnesota, and I'm enjoying all this conversation with all the chat about Quinn Hughes. Great channel. Thank you. Appreciate that. David Chimes, AHL roster stocked. No more Lamico, Chalowski, and Dowling type players as call-ups. Yeah, and that's what depth will give you, right, David? Like, if you have guys that may be on other teams' NHL rosters as an everyday player, that's ideally what you want to have. You want to have guys where when you need to call someone up, that they're not just like, oh my God, who is this guy? I mean, you know, not to rag on some of these guys that the Devils have been kind of rolling out there in these instances, but it's been completely underwhelming, and the results have shown. Mike Van Houten, if Jack and Quinn went to free agency in the same year, they would need to go to a team that has 30-40 million in cap space available for 2 guys. That's obviously just one of the kind of intricacies of them trying to align that. But, you know, that's why would you want to wait for that? If it's right there for the taking in the much shorter term. Dre White says Kirill Marchenko would be a perfect fit for the Devils this year. Do you think a deal could get done with Columbus? People have been bringing this up for a couple months now, too, or at least a month. I just can't see it. I don't even know why they would want to get rid of him. I saw the report, but again, there are a lot of nonsense reports out there these days. Ryder says, be good. Hit the like on the way out. Thanks. Hit the thumbs up for your boy. Hit the thumbs up. Don't be stingy. John Papaneer. I think Jack's not leaving, and because of that, Quinn will come to New Jersey. Jack has too much loyalty to the Devils. I mean, for now, and that could change at any time. But I do agree that I do think Jack likes it here, and I do think he wants to win here, and he wants to succeed. And adding his brother Quinn to this team would certainly be something. SJ, Casey is small for a D-man, but so is Quinn, so the key for Casey is skating well. Yeah, but I think you're simplifying it a little bit. I mean, Quinn just sees the game differently, and he could control a game in ways that not many other guys can. It's just different. Andrew says Casey needs to stay healthy, but despite his limited playing time, he's improved his point per game production. I don't know if he'll play here, but I definitely feel he'll be an NHLer. He's got the tools. No, I agree too. I mean, I wouldn't be stunned. I wouldn't be totally shocked if he never became an NHL player, but I do think the upside is there where he will at least have some sort of NHL career, whether it's with the Devils or elsewhere if they decide to trade him. I do think he has the potential. BMP, thanks always for your content. Looking forward to future videos. Have a good night. Thank you. Thank you. You have a great evening. That's just said Jack loves the Devils. He even grabbed the crest after a goal. Nice moment. I think that was against the Rangers, right? When he was doing with the jersey. David Chimes says Villain has developed better so far than Casey. Could change now that Casey is healthy. We'll see. But the defense is pretty loaded up. I would be fairly surprised if we did not see at a minimum one defenseman traded before the season kicks off. And there's just so many. Bobby, Van Hanen will be on the team in 2 to 3 years. He'll be an excellent middle six forward. If our bottom six struggles, I hope they call up Malofsky. He looks really good. What are your thoughts on Squires? So Squires stood out to me in person at development camp, I think last year and maybe the year before. I can't remember if it was just last year or the year before. And he looked pretty good in the Prospects Challenge in Buffalo as well. And then last season, I think he started off, he didn't stay there long, but he started off in the ECHL with the Adirondack Thunder. And then he went, let me just check here. And then he went to Utica. Yeah, he played 8 games with the Thunder. And then he played 47 games with the Comets. I don't know if he got hurt. In the 47 games, he had 5 goals and 11 assists for 16 points. I mean, it's not obviously not great. Yeah, he's only 21. Still plenty of time for him. I'm curious to see if we get a look at him, if he'll be playing in any of these. The first 2 preseason games are essentially rookie games. As just says, I like Villain. He's at the age where he should be knocking on the door. Maybe he surprises us. Definitely. Just said Dylan, Siegs, Covey, and Pesci bring no offensive upside. Yeah, I mean, really, right now, your offensive defensemen are Dougie Hamilton and Luke Hughes. Now, while I do think it is a nice luxury to get offensive production from the blue line, and the Devils certainly need more of it than they've been getting recently, if the forwards do their job, it shouldn't be as much of a stress point. But the defense as a whole definitely needs to produce a little bit more. So Squires has been bad. Yeah, he was sent to the coast. Justin said, I think Mercer is hated more than Timo and Hamilton. It's possible. And I've talked about it before, but I think it's just because people had unrealistic expectations. The kid makes $4 million and you could put him out there at any point of a game. I mean, you know, that's a valuable player. A real Swiss jackknife. I want to see Tufty or Steves play. Again, more guys that are going to be battling for some limited bottom 6 spots. SJ says, got to trade Siegs or Dylan. I like them both, but can't have them both. You would think. David Chimes, Villain scoring half point per game in the AHL. Very two-way, winning minor league awards. You rounded up a little bit there, but yeah, what do you have? Like 24 goals and 23 assists for 27 points in 61 games with Utica last season. Slaying ice 2-2. I don't know. I like Mercer. He's not a 30-goal guy, but he does other things well, like eating up ice time and defensive stretches, and he's a pretty good PKer. Now, Mercer has value. People just, I think people just thought he was going to be a 70-point guy, and it didn't happen. And then they started, bringing out the pitchforks. What's with Lombardi hype? He's too undersized to play 4C, and he hasn't ever broken NHL roster. What have you heard about this kid? Come on, Snow. You got to pay attention, my guy. He's an analytics play. Sonny's very high on him. Very high on him, and I think he has a real chance to be on the opening night roster. They think they found an undervalued asset in Lombardi, and we're going to see. There's some real stiff competition for the bottom six, though. Bobby said, apparently the coach for Command and Vigo Bjork said he could see Vigo starting for the Jets this year and Command for us the following year. Pretty interesting comments from the Swedish national coach. I mean, that'd be interesting. Jay Snow said we need to hit on Command. He looked good. He only took the ice in the second day of development camp, the skills competition, but that's on the channel. If you want to see the Devils first round, number 12 overall pick, Alexander Command, he did partake in the skills competition day 2 of development camp. That is on the channel as well. Jason said Fitz completely killed us with his drafting. Yeah, absolutely. Matty Ice, any shot of Lombardi making the team? He was very productive in the AHL over the last few years. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, there is a chance. And I know Sonny Maeda is very, very high on him. Very, very high. We'll see what becomes of him in camp and preseason. SJ said, I just want a relatively healthy season. Feels like it's been ages. It has been. It has been. So analytics ain't making him no bigger. Well, Snow, I don't want to break this to you, but I think the analytics largely dismisses size. David Chimes, I read stuff from Red Wings fans complaining that Iser moron sold Lombardi too cheap. I mean, I could see Wings fans maybe being a little upset when, if they thought that their nearly point per game AHL guy was being, shipped out for an underwhelming return. Bobby, I think amongst many of Fitz's blunders, his piss poor drafting really set this team back. I don't think his drafting obviously was good. And I do think it hurt the team, but I think his inability or unwillingness to address problems as they arose in real time was his biggest failure as a general manager. SJ, I like Mercer. I think he is worth the contract. He will get 40+ points and play every game, literally. Yeah, the Iron Man. Andrew I says Lombardi did an hour-long interview with the Detroit podcast last week. He mentioned Sonny told him his underlying metrics and play style would make him a great fit here. Yeah. Justin said, I just want a goalie that can stop the puck. Bobby, Malik, and Dawes will be the tandem next year unless Allen has a phenomenal season. When you say next year, Bobby, do you mean the 26-27 season or 27-28? Jason said, I don't want to hear Sonny doesn't believe in sandpaper. I mean, you kind of got to read between the lines a little bit. Justin says Malik needs 2 more years in the AHL. He is not ready yet. Snows has got to have some balance between analytics and the eye test. No, I agree. In my interview with him, I asked him if he ever made a decision that analytics did not 100% support, and he stated that, nothing is ever 100%. So, he talked about taking scouting reports into consideration and all these other things, but it does seem as though that the analytics are going to be the primary kind of thing. All right, I got to run to the bathroom real quick. I'm just going to leave this up. I'll be right back in a minute, folks. Appreciate you all for coming out. Quick bathroom break. Be right back. Be right back. Yeah, I mean, if the Wilders, I'm just reading this again. I mean, if the 3 years was on the table, I feel like they would have taken it already. It just doesn't make sense. The more I think about it, I'm not trying to fire you guys up, but it just doesn't make sense. Andrew I says, Sonny isn't stupid. LOL. Tulski, a very, very, very heavily analytics driven GM, just won a cup with the same mindset. They were far from the biggest team in the league. And you saw what happened with their goaltending. David Chimes, Boquist has turned into a sandpaper player. You're going to love him, Ace. Totally different play style than when last in NJ. Another guy that I think is kind of right there on the cusp. David Chimes, do you predict that Boquist is on the opening night roster? I have to really lay out the lines. I haven't done it yet. It will be coming closer to the season. I don't like doing this stuff so early. I want to see if there's any other moves, but I do think there's a very good chance that he is also on the opening night roster. But when you look, man, there's going to be some competition. SJ says Nemitz over Cooley was criminal. That one hurts. Yeah, again, a drafting miscue for sure. You could put Alex Holtz obviously in that conversation. Being a 7 overall, that basically it is a tragedy situation when you look at the Holtz pick at 7. And then Holtz and Akira Schmid, who still very well may end up being a serviceable NHL goaltender, whether a 1A or 1B guy. We're going to see he's going to get his chance in Florida behind Jacob Markstrom. And as many of us joked about, I don't know, a few weeks ago, wouldn't it be something if we saw an all former New Jersey Devils goaltender matchup in the Cup Finals and we saw the Woods, Mackenzie Blackwood and Scott Wedgwood in the Avalanche against Jacob Markstrom, Akira Schmid, and the Florida Panthers. What a crazy turn of events that would be. But Nemo, we'll see what happens with his career. He's going to have a much bigger opportunity in Calgary than he was going to have with the Devils, and see if he makes the most of it. I still think there is a chance he becomes a very solid NHL defenseman. I mean, the signs were there, and he has that clutch gene. But yeah, I thought Cooley would have been a good pick there, but I firmly wanted to see the Devils trade that number 2 pick for win now help, and obviously that did not happen. David Chimes says people don't realize the Canes are not heavy on size and grit. No, but they're a hard team to play against because of the way they play. It's not necessarily size or whatever, but just their tenacity and ferociousness on pucks, their forecheck. They're a very well-coached team. Hot Rod University, folks. Rod Brindamore has had that team And they finally got over the hump. Rendich 2 says, why did Billy G have to meet with Quinn and not Brisson the last week? Does not seem like he needs to convince Quinn rather than not iron out contract details. I don't, regardless of who he's meeting with, like the fact that it's not done yet, it means something. What does that mean exactly? I don't know. I gave you a bunch of theories earlier on, and if you're late to this live, you could go back and watch the beginning where I kind of laid out a bunch of different possibilities or kind of thought processes behind it. But it's definitely interesting. And if Wild fans that are saying like, oh, they're not worried about anything, I don't know what world they're living in, because I don't think anyone thought we'd be at August 3rd and there would still be no deal. David Chimes says Boquist on the roster unless Lombardi blows everyone's mind in camp. SJ says Slavin is a true number 1D. Devils don't have that. Slavin's a beast. Absolute beast. Mechanicsville 804. What's up, Ace? What is going on, Mechanicsville? Justin Smith says Holtz is a bust. It certainly seems that way. I mean, barring some monstrous turnaround, it certainly seems that. Bobby Whitting says Holtz is different. He was royally screwed over by Ruff and Fitz. Ruff absolutely hated him and destroyed his development and confidence. But like, here's the thing, Bobby. At the time, I thought maybe Holtz wasn't getting the best opportunity to shine. But in the end, was Lindy wrong about him? I'm going to say he wasn't. He went to another organization, and he wasn't even an everyday player. I mean, so what does that say? I would say that Lindy was vindicated in that regard. What? He played 53 games with the Golden Knights in 24-25 and had 4 goals and 8 assists for 12 points. I mean, much better points per game last year, but he only played 28 games and had 3 goals and 6 assists for 9 points. So, I mean, this is not exactly in his career thus far total. He played all 82 for the Devils in 23-24. Holtz over 5 NHL seasons, has 191 games played, 26 goals, 29 assists for 55 points. That doesn't scream 7 overall to me. Justin says Schmid was good last year for Vegas. Scrimbly, when we acquired Quinn, who was his line mate? Do you mean his D partner? Andrew says, exactly, skill trumps all. Skill with some sandpaper, awesome, but pure skill outscores pure grit every day of the week. Kane's best line had 2 players under 6 feet on it and under 185 pounds. David Chimes, Holtz got a second and third chance with Vegas. Officially bust status now. I think he's back in Europe. I mean, it's rough. Jay Snow, who was the Conn Smythe winner doing the dirty work? I'm just saying. No, Snow, you know where I'm at. You need some of that element. I completely agree with you, Snow. SJ, Kane's just lost a lot to be a champion. You have to lose. The Devils are not quite there yet. Need more playoff experience. And again, this is to bring back something I talked about for a while. That exact thought or over the years, you've seen teams, the Canes are another great example, that had these playoff runs, and whether they lost in the second round, third round, they went there as a group, went in the playoffs, they took these losses, and then eventually got it done. I do believe the Devils missing the playoffs in 23-24, the season after setting a franchise record with 112 points in the regular season and beating the Rangers in that glorious 7-game series, missing the playoffs entirely in 23-24, I do think was a severely damaging kind of situation for the team. To come from the high of the season before and then fail to miss the playoffs was just a huge misstep by the organization, in my opinion. And I do blame Tom Fitzgerald for not getting a goaltender before he did. I mean, it was clearly obvious to the whole world that the Devils' goaltending was just not good enough. And he said he hoped and wished it was going to fix itself. It never did. Then he got Kakinen and Jake Allen on deadline day, and it was too late. It was over. The season was lost. Snow, he also stepped up and fought Brady. You need those guys. Yeah, he's a heart and soul guy. Rendich too. Holtz was and is not a good hockey player. He can shoot but not play hockey. Jason, no, Marchand is small, but he plays big. Another one of those pesky types. And if you remember, Snow, I don't know if you do remember, but I'm sure some of the longtime viewers here will remember, even though I knew it was probably a pipe dream and not realistic, when Marchand's name was coming up in trade rumors, I said if he would consider going to the Devils, that is a guy that I think would have been a great fit for the Devils. Again, I knew from the beginning it was a long shot, and he probably was going to go somewhere like a Florida. But a lot of people are like, oh, I got flamed for that. A lot of people going, oh, he's so old and he's washed. And I think people need to start to realize that contending teams and teams that win cups, they're not all young guys. Like, you need a nice mixture of young guys, those guys in their prime, and then on the other end, the veterans. You're going to need guys over 30 to win, and all winning teams have that. And aside from Marchand, another guy that is a great example of this exact thing was this was also 2 seasons ago, when there were talks, or was it last year? No, it was 2 seasons ago. Yeah. When the Taylor Hall on the trade the trade block rumors were floating around, another guy that I also said, despite how he left and maybe some bad history, I thought Taylor Hall could have been a tremendous piece for the Devils to look into bringing back, and I got flamed for that. Again, he's old, he's washed, and what do you know, guys? At 34 years young, Taylor Hall, I forget where he finished. He had to at least get some votes for the Conn Smythe, but at 34 years young, had 7 goals and 12 assists for 19 points in 19 playoff games with the Carolina Hurricanes en route to a Stanley Cup. And so it's time for people to wake up and realize that your entire team cannot be guys under 30. That is ridiculous. You need veterans. You need guys that can produce. You need everything. And there's often guys over 30 that could fill that role. Bobby, you could argue Nemo was a mistake at number 2, and I love Nemo, but one could argue Luke at number 4 was a mistake. We could have had Johnston, Gunther, Eklund. Take your pick. Any of those make the Devils better. I can't put this on a list of Fitzgerald Knox, I guess, because it's not like they reached for Luke. He was ranked very highly. You had to know that if Luke was there, the Devils were taking him. I mean, that was just so I can't even blame him for that one. Jason said we need to start taking steps. I really thought 22-23 was the beginning, as did I. I fully believed that it was the turnaround season that so many were waiting for. I really thought that signified, like, okay, this group has kind of arrived now. They're going to be an annual playoff team and hopefully win some rounds and start taking those steps towards being a true competitor, but it had not happened. Slaying Ice 222, what can we expect from Mantha? Is he going to be a power play 2 guy? Can we hope for 30-plus goals? I mean, you could hope for that. I'd imagine he will see some power play 2 time, I would think. In terms of production, I don't know that he's going to be able to replicate his 64 points, I believe, last year. But if he does stick with Jack Hughes and Jesper Bratt, I think he will be close to 60 points. And you might see something like 25 goals, 35 assists, something like that. I think he'll be hovering around 60 points if he plays with those two for the majority of the season. SJ says, true, but you got to take Jack's brother when he's there, and Luke is still young. We don't know his true ceiling. Completely agree. Even if Luke ended up being the biggest bust of all time, and I'm not saying that he is. I think he's shown signs. I do think he's a good young defenseman, and I think he's going to get better. Defensemen take forever to fully blossom, and I know people are going to be like, oh, but what about Schaefer? Like, people always want to bring up the extreme outliers. Like, good for Schaefer. The kid came into the league, was a stud as a teenager. Like, that's not going to be every defenseman. So you can't compare every guy to a true generational talent like Schaefer. But I totally agree. he was ranked by Central Scouting pretty high. You had to know that if he was there, the Devils were going to take him. Matthew E. Ace, what's your prediction on who makes the Cup Finals and who wins? It's way too early for that. I'll do some of that as we get closer to the season. This Diego Lopez, that video of the Kane strength and conditioning coach was quite eye-opening. Even Taylor Hall said he had a hard time keeping up after being moved from Chicago. Devs need to hit the weights more. Interesting you bring that up. I do think a lot of the kind of training and all that stuff side of the game isn't talked about nearly enough. And I do think there's something to what you're saying here, Diego Lopez, that some teams have more, rigorous training regimens for the players. And I do think come playoff time, when you're in the warfare, some teams are much better conditioned for it. Johnny Danks, what's up? Hey, Ace, great interview with Sonny. Sorry if you mentioned this already, but is there any truth to the tweets going around saying Jack will not sign an extension with the Devils? No, man. This is all just nonsense online. Just ignore the nonsense. There's zero. Jack will not sign an extension for the Devils. That's so far away from now. I don't even know how people. It's just crazy, but it's just the internet, Johnny. Andrew I, 23-24 is probably the most cursed season with injuries, too. There was a point where I think Brendan Smith was the only player on the blue line with over 60 career games played. Yeah, the injuries have been bad for several years now. And to big-name guys as well. Jay Snow, I want to buy into the hype this year, but the Devils really need to prove it this year. Of course. Of course. Every season since the 22-23 season has been highly anticipated, and they all ended poorly. 23-24 missed the playoffs. 24-25, get to the playoffs, decimated by injuries, smacked by Carolina in 5. And then obviously 25-26, again, Chicago cut. Some other injuries, missed the playoffs. SJ, alternating playoff appearances has slowed the Devils' growth. Yeah, they need to start putting together winning seasons and playoff appearances. David Chimes, I got blasted for loving Stankoven because he's small. Suddenly, when they win the cup, people see he was a steal by the Canes. Size doesn't matter as much as people think. Agree that balls is important, for sure. Even Taylor Hall was a beast in the playoffs, and I told Ace we should sign him. He didn't listen. I openly said I thought Taylor Hall would have been a good fit. I don't know what you're talking about, Snow. Justin Smith says go back to the original playoff format, for sure. The fans overwhelmingly want it, but because of money and ratings, I don't think it's ever going to happen. But I think it was Pierre LeBrun a few months ago did a poll, and 90% of the people said they like the 1-8 better. Obviously, the old playoff format is so much better. Yeah, thank you, John. Thank you, John Decker. Flame for Steven Stamkos. Thank you. There's so many of them, I forget. Steven Stamkos, same thing. He's so washed. You're crazy. What did Stammer have? 45 goals last year? Listen, I forgot about that. Thank you, Decker. Yeah, Steven Stamkos, another one I was relentlessly flamed for. How could I forget? That was the most recent one. Yeah, when the Predators were in the toilet early last season and his name was floating around again and floating around in connection to the Devils. And then there obviously was those stories that the Devils were interested when he was a free agent a few years ago, along with Marchessault, and missed out. Stammer, I thought he would have been a great pickup. But, the Predators turned it around, and here we are. Jason says we should have drafted Stankoven. He was the pick, and Moron Fitz took Stillman. SJ, if Jack is healthy, I'm confident. If he's out, I have no faith in the other three to carry us. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a very Jack Hughes dependent team, obviously. Now, if he unfortunately is injured for any sort of time this upcoming season, you would like to believe and hope that the other guys will pick up the slack better than they have in the past. And maybe some of the improved depth can also help in that regard. But if Jack Hughes is down for any sort of time, obviously Nico Hischier, Timo Meier, Jesper Bratt are going to have to step up big time. But hopefully that doesn't happen. Jay Snow, Fitz screwed this team so badly. David Chimes, I flamed you on the Hall take. Sorry. Oh, David Chimes depositing his apologies in the chat. Takes a big man to do that, David. No, I certainly understand that most people at the time thought it was crazy. But Taylor Hall always struck me as one of those guys that, like, even though in his older age, that he could just bring an element that they were missing. And he's a gamer. He really is. What a pickup for Carolina. I mean, my God. A tremendous pickup for Carolina. Luke has already had game-breaking moments for sure. He's shown the flashes of it. He's just got to get the consistency up now. Bobby, you should post a question on the page or IG of people's hottest takes, then a video of said takes. I thought about something like this. I'll do something like this soon. I don't know if it'll be like a mailbag or reacting to something, but yeah, I've thought about something along these lines. Jason, I wouldn't mind a Jack Grits Mantha line and a Timo Nico Brat line. I mean, these are all interesting ideas. I still think you're going to see the old pairs return, at least to start, with Jack and Brat together and Nico and Timo. Justin Smith, Houston is leading candidates for next NHL expansion. Austin, Texas also mentioned. Yeah, expansion's going to happen. It's inevitable. A lot of money involved, and that expansion fee, I think, is like a few billion now. Crazy. It's crazy to see the values of how sports teams' values have just increased so wildly over the past decade or so. It's really crazy. Dr. MacArthur, thank you for the super. Is that Dr. MacArthur? Is that you in your profile picture, or is that Kenny Powers of Eastbound and Down fame? Jordan better than LeBron. Absolutely. Matthew says, Ace, get Mike Russo as a guest on the podcast. I don't know how likely that would be. Brandon T says, I like how Stamkos belongs in a retirement home and still scored twice the goals of all our players because he's a legend. Justin says, Stamkos still a great player. Don't care how old he is. Yeah, production is production. Jason, would have been nice to get Barrett Hayden to add another true center. Would have been nice, but the Devils still have, even without taking the Erod potential center move, if you just go Jack, Nico, Glass, Bukestad is still a lot better than what the Devils have had in a while. But there's certainly some possibilities. David Chime says Timo is the only one of the three who never steps up except in playoffs. Timo is a gamer there. Yeah, he had his fingerprints all over that Rangers series in 22-23. He was bumping Shesterkin, running guys over. He definitely had an impact. SJ, with the current format, just the same matchups every year. Boring. Jason, we need Luke to take a big step this year. I think he's going to. I'm very curious to see how Power Play 1 is handled. I do think Luke is a pretty solid power play quarterback, and I think he will get better. But as it stands right now, I do think it should be Dougie. But we'll see. Jason, someone's going to get moved. We got too many forwards. Who do you think goes? There's so many possibilities. There's just so many possibilities when you look. Like, is it a guy like Mercer who has probably the most trade value of anyone the team would consider actually trading in the right deal? And then you look at, a guy like Bukestad, maybe a Nason. I mean, there's a bunch of different guys where you're like, how is this going to work out? Brandon says, I personally think our team has no idea how to coach Timo. Timo plays anywhere else. He performs like crazy. I do believe the biggest factor of the production dip is just lack of power play one time. We just have a lot of forwards that demand power play one time, and they all can't play power play one. Justin says, I apologize for the Timo hate. Jason, Timo's got to carry all the physical play up front. He needs some help in that department. Yeah, it would be nice to see someone else kind of helping him in that regard. Get Timo another Bash brother. Jason, I can imagine Timo on a heavier team being an animal. For sure. I do think if you put him in an environment where there's a lot of guys that play that kind of game, that you would see it come out of him more often. But who knows? He needs to have a bounce back year too. Not a great season for him last year. SJ says the softness of the, I guess, team makes Timo less nasty. Timo wreaked havoc in the Olympics. Yeah. He looks good. We've seen Timo the Bull on many occasions. Can he do it on a nightly basis? Can he do it on a nightly basis? Let me look for something here. My computer has a mind of its own.
Give me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire.
Jay Snow, he does do it in the Olympics. It seems like something's just off in New Jersey. We need at least 30 goals from Timo, and Brett can't turn into a ghost. Well, I said this last year. There was stretches where you're like he was very quiet, but then he kind of picked it up at the end of the year. And yeah, he finished with 71 points. Like it may be one of the more underwhelming 70+ point seasons I recall from a Devil in a while. You're like, 71 points. But yeah, it just half naked Frankenstein. I'd like to see power play 1, power play 2, split time more evenly. That's an interesting one. I feel like no matter what, Jack needs to be out there almost for the whole thing. But maybe you could swap out some of the other guys. It will be interesting to see how that all shakes out. A lot of guys looking for power play time, even if it's power play 2. Brandon T 69 Ace. Do you think Sonny made enough changes so far to make any confidence back into the team's lack of scoring 2 years in a row? I mean, I think the team's slightly improved at a minimum. I don't know if it's going to be drastically different, but I do think part of his assessment, and I hate to say this because it's going to make some people upset, but part of the improvement is relying on health. I mean, like, even if there was no changes, just Jack Hughes healthy makes this team much better overall. And now you're talking about if Mantha and Rodriguez could do what they were brought in to do and the team stays fairly healthy, you know, you're asking for a lot of things to go your way. But if they do, it could result in the team being much better, in my opinion. John Sumner Anthony, I've always said and felt Quinn will not sign an extension and Sonny will get him for nothing next July 1st. I will also be bold as I say Jason Robertson signs with NJ2 with Quinn. Wow, that's an interesting and bold prediction. Not so much the Quinn portion, but the Robertson. He is going to, if he has a season anywhere near this year like he did last year, his contract is going to be absolutely bonkers. A bonkers deal. David Chimes, Keefe has got to have a big season. I'm no longer in love. 308 divisional record and next to last 5-on-5 offense puts him in question. The weak record versus division rivals happened in Toronto as well. I do believe Toronto was a fairly cursed group, but let's see. A new GM that seems to be much more proactive. And if there's a glaring need, I don't think it'll go unaddressed. This Diego Lopez, what would you like power play 2 to look like? I'm leaning Grits, Brown, Timo, Rodriguez, and Luke. That's an interesting group. JFA Brat is a silent killer. He is a silent killer. He will strike when you least expect him to. Jay Snow, yeah, when Jack came back, Brat started racking up points. He became a Jack merchant. If they trade Mercer, I hope it's for another player. Snow, I agree. If they trade Mercer, I'd ask for a player in return. I don't think they would trade Mercer for futures, but I also didn't think they would trade Nemo for for futures. So while you would like to believe if that Mercer would be part of a package, or if not a package, at least bringing back a roster player, I'm not so convinced of that anymore. I could see if there wasn't a deal there that, Sonny was into, that if there was a decent futures play out there, that he would potentially jump on that and stack up even more draft capital, which you would then hope down the line is traded for immediate roster pieces. Maybe they get a high-end prospect. David Chimes, Tort still wants to work, and I can't figure out why Vegas walked from him. If he gets the job, how nervous would you be interviewing him? If he gets the job, what? Jay Fay, if they trade Mercer, at least make it a package deal. I don't think the Devils would just trade him for the sake of trading him. I've said this before. I do think if there was something tempting out there that improved the roster, that they would consider it. But I don't think, unlike many people that are like, oh, trade Mercer. They're not going to just trade Mercer for the sake of trading him. Justin Smith, Torts cost Vegas a Stanley Cup by not switching goalies. It's possible. Can never prove it, but it's certainly possible. It's also possible that that Carolina was just the better team and kind of destined to win. I don't got anything else. It's getting pretty late. Appreciate you all for coming out on what is this, Monday night? SJ Timo's on power play 2. Explains the lesser production. He should be on the first unit. No, I mean, when he was a power play 1 staple in San Jose, you're gonna see a dip in production when you don't see power play 1 time. A's get Torts on the pod and interview him about his Olympic experience. I'd like to hear what it was like through his eyes. Torts would be a great guy to talk to. Brandon T, I think Mercer helps a team out of a rebuild, but he won't take a team to a cup. He's way too soft. Well, first of all, I don't think anyone would be looking at a Dawson Mercer acquisition as a guy that's going to take you to a cup, but he certainly could be viewed as a nice piece to have on a team aspiring to win a cup. I think they're two very different things. He's never going to be the guy, but could he be a key supporting role type player? I think he could be. I can't watch baseball, man. I can't do it. It's painful. Anyone got anything else? About to wrap this up and get on out of here. It's late. It's late. You also risk Mercer getting better after trading him like Zaka. But that's a lot of guys. You can't not make moves that make sense because you have FOMO that like, oh, they're going to be, some of these guys may have never, a guy like Zaka, he may have never developed the same way if he had stayed in New Jersey. So, guys aren't going to just fall off a cliff when the Devils move on from them. Like you saw that even with Blackwood, right? Like he had some decent numbers on some bad San Jose teams. And then, he found the perfect situation and got dealt to Colorado. David Chimes says, if Devils decided to part with Keefe, Torts would be the number 1 option right now. Who wins the Super Bowl this year? I have no idea. Who wins the Super Bowl? I don't know. Brandon says Mercer gets hit 1 hit per 3 games, just not playoff material. Justin Smith, Packers win the Super Bowl. Lombardi is coming back to Titletown. Anyone got any other last minute things here? But yeah, about to be August 4th. Still no Quinn Hughes extension, and we monitor it daily. We monitor the situation daily. Will there be a deal? Will there not be? I'm kind of tired of talking about it. I don't talk about it incessantly, but once it was August, I'm like, I guess I got to talk about it at least a little bit. All right, that's it, folks. Hit the thumbs up for your boy before you exit. It takes 2 seconds, not even half a second. Just click that little thumbs up. If you're not subscribed to the channel already, I don't know what you're waiting for. Subscribe to the channel. Put on the little notification bell so you don't miss these random lives. A lot of times they're just kind of out of nowhere. They're not really planned. They're just spontaneous. Just bang. Just come on. You don't want to miss it. Put on that. Subscribe to nj.com, folks. I'll be putting articles on there throughout the summer. And then obviously once the season ramps up, there'll be a lot of articles and Devils coverage for you on nj.com. Speaking of the Devils, brought to you by nj.com. Sign up for nj.com. Thinking anything else. Poke around on the channel. Like I said, you got the Brett Pesce interview. You got some videos on Shoulder Check, a great hockey charity. Do I have anything else? I don't think so. Yeah, go poke around on the channel. Sign up for nj.com. Follow me on Instagram and X. Those links are in the description, and it was pinned in the chat. And that's it, guys. That's it. I got to go do some things. I got some exciting stuff in the works, as always. Keep your eyes peeled. I'll be back soon. Thank you all for watching. I love you all. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. Until next time, friends, I'm out.